the Fantasy Football Fanalist Podcast, presented by Fantasy Data. Here's your hosts, Billy Muzio and Bradley Stalder.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Football Fanalist Podcast presented by Fantasy Data. Tonight, Bradley and I are joined by Pat Fitzmaurice. He is the number one most accurate multi-year draft expert at Fantasy Pros. That's very hard to do, people. Number one most accurate ranker for the 2020 season at Fantasy Pros. Also very hard to do. Number one most accurate quarterback ranker for 2020. I could probably go on about all his achievements as being an accurate ranker, but I want to we brought him on to hear what he has to say. You've heard me all season. Welcome, Pat, to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, Billy and Brad, thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to talking to you guys, trying to sort things out in a very complicated week 15. Very complicated.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of news this week, and seems like Adam Schefter and Eden Rappaport are just blowing up my phone with Twitter notifications. I'm like, I don't even want to look sometimes at the notes. I'm like, no, is this player going to affect my fantasy lineups? Oh, no. Tyler Lockett's out. Odell Beckham's out. Who's Baker Mayfield, Case Keenum now? Who's Washington going to start this week? I don't even know. So it's going to be a complete mess. And that's why this depth issue, and yes, we're going to talk about the top 10 for each of the positions, but looking at the depth of your roster as well is going to be important as you're moving forward here in the playoffs, where many of you are playing for a lot of money. So this is a very even more important time where you have to be on top of these breaking news segments and how the COVID protocols have changed within the last 48 hours. We've seen protocols change. So there's a possibility that if Tyler Lockett or Odell Beckham continue to test negative over the next few days, they theoretically could be available. But these are just situations worth monitoring, just a couple of them.
Yeah, news is constantly coming out. It's easy to miss. So normally, folks, we would sit here and run through injuries, and there's just so many this week between COVID, primarily COVID-related, that we don't want to waste our time that we have with Pat tonight and just run through 100, 200 plus issues tonight. So we're going to be talking primarily rankings tonight. We're going to direct you to whichever news source that you like to use for your active or non-active players. And then we're just going to run through our rankings tonight, starting with quarterback. Bradley, let's get it pulled up. And I think we have Pat's first, don't we?
And we have a rankings drop too.
We do. I'm always a little bit late to this one on the first one of the night. And here we go.
Top 10 ranking segment. Billy and Bradley's top 10 ranked positional players.
All right, Pat. We got your top 10 up here on the board. Why don't you walk us through 1 through 10? Tell us why you like Kyler Murray most and kind of give us a little explanation for each one of them.
Yeah, so I know Kyler didn't play real well last week. I kind of like the matchup against Detroit. We know he can get it done with his legs or his arm. The Hopkins thing, that's kind of a blow maybe to the passing ceiling that he has, but I still think that ceiling's pretty high against Detroit and all the problems they've had in the secondary this season. I kind of flip-flopped on Allen a little bit. I mean, I really could have made a case for any of the top 3 guys being number one. Allen's foot thing worried me a little bit. I wonder how much running he's going to do this week. So I dropped him down to 2. And Carolina's got a pretty tough secondary, but you can only drop Josh Allen so far. I mean, he can beat good defenses. So Herbert and Mahomes have already gone at 3 and 5. I guess I probably should have had those two reversed, as it turned out. We finally got that ceiling game from Mahomes. I think he had one quarterback, one finish over the last 7 weeks, but he had a bunch of finishes in the 20s, kind of uncharacteristic. But I'm kind of glad he got that one in, because I have him in the Scott Fishbowl and I'm still alive there. So it was a good way to start the week. Tom Brady, New Orleans has done a decent job against him since he got to Tampa Bay. That was more last year, though. I think in the earlier meeting with them, he did pretty well just because I think he wound up throwing like 50 passes, if I'm not mistaken. Aaron Rodgers going against a depleted Baltimore secondary. He's been on fire lately. Dak really looked off last week, but I think he can kind of get it back together against the Giants. I feel like there's a bit of a teardrop after Rodgers. Stafford and Prescott, just like quality quarterbacks, they're always going to land in the top 10, I think. Jalen Hurts, a little risky here, man. I don't know what you guys think about this, but just the possibility now of maybe an in-game benching if things don't start well with him and after the way Minshew played the last time out. So a little nervous about him, but then again, I mean, this guy's racked up like more quarterback one finishes, I think, than just about everyone else this year. And then Burrow, who, I've been really impressed with the way he's thrown the ball. It looks like the finger isn't an issue. And, a decent, well, I don't know, Denver's kind of a tricky matchup, but I think highly of Burrow. And I think the one omission that, people might be wondering about is Taysom Hill. And, I'm anxious to see where you guys have him. I just feel like if he does not hit that rushing upside, like the floor is kind of scary because he's not an NFL caliber passer. He's Tim Tebow basically. And I
love the comparison.
Yeah. And like the last 2 weeks, I mean, he had that fluky catch and run by Deontay Harris 2 weeks ago. That was like with just outside the 2-minute warning, I think. And that was basically all Deontay Harris making that play. Big scoring play for him. Then, last week, under 2 minutes, he has the 44-yard touchdown run against the Jets that really turns out like a pretty good game into a great game. So I don't know. There's just kind of a flukiness to the point totals the last 2 weeks in a way. And like if the Buccaneers and those linebackers who can pursue sideline to sideline, if they can kind of like stop the running, and I know they let Josh Allen run for 109 yards last week, but if they can slow down Taysom's running, like I don't think he's doing, 20 fantasy points worth of damage with his arm.
So that's the thing about Taysom Hill. I've never been a Taysom Hill fan, and a lot of it is selfishness with high stakes leagues and losing because of him. But when I look at his skill set, that rushing floor sets a pretty safe fantasy output. Although Tampa, like you said, last week did give up quite a bit on the ground, but in the past they've been very stingy against rushers, whether it be quarterbacks or running backs. So I have Taysom in my top 10, but I think that his ability to run will also kind of create more lanes open down the field, which we're going to see some more of those, fluky plays because they're going to have to keep the defense honest. They're going to have to worry about Taysom Hill running. And I think that can keep some lanes open. He makes it inside my top 10. We'll see those shortly, but it's like his floor is, I agree, it's bad, right? He can re-hurt that finger. Even he could play a few snaps, get re-injured. There's such a steep floor to ceiling that it is scary. But I think that I think he's a locked in quarterback one week in, week out because of that safety net with his legs.
Well, and Alvin Kamara is back in the lineup too, and he was. Like everyone's so worried about last year at the beginning when he took over as quarterback and he wasn't dumping it off to Camara. He had one game where he didn't give him any targets, but we've seen this season when Taysom's on the field and Kamara's there as well, he's willing to dump it off. And the Buccaneers, they may stop the run pretty well, but they do not stop the pass catching running backs well. So I think that there's a little more safety net there with Taysom Hill just in the short passes and Camara being in the lineup there. But we'll see for both Billy and myself where we rank Taysom Hill. Billy, we'll go to you next here for your top 10 for week 15. You also kick it off with Kyler Murray.
Yeah, it's funny because like I was looking at these before and it's like the bookends flip and everything in the middle is pretty much the same. Like 6, 7, 8 are identical. But Kyler won as well. Justin Herbert, I put 2. Like, I misread this game script. Like, how the fourth quarter turned out was how I envisioned most of this game being. And I just thought it was going to be this massive shootout. And we ended up getting it, but it was just 3 quarters late, quite frankly. And we were texting back and forth, Bradley, and I just said, "Oh, there's a lot of football left. There's a lot of football left." And then boom, it finally happened. You know, we're looking at all the injuries and COVID-related outs that we had here for these defenses or the defense for the Chiefs. And we had Derwin James possibly not playing and chance of re-injury, which happened. And so there was just so many factors on defense that I thought could, go wrong. And quite frankly, I was shocked by how well both defenses were playing each other up until quarter 4. And of course, Derwin leaves and, Kelsey just goes off and game script was completely changed at that point. So I had kind of envisioned that game script to be that way all game, and hence Herbert at 2 and Patrick Mahomes at 3. I think the Patrick Mahomes one will work out. Herbert, I don't think will hit that, but Brady at 4, it's just hard to rate him outside the top 5 is how well he's played this year. I just don't think you can do it. He's matchup proof. He's even against a New Orleans team here who, like Pat says, played him tough. They seem to have his number, but he seems to always put up a consistent top 5 finish. Josh Allen, I do have concerns this week with his foot. I also just have concerns with how he's played as of late. I mean, he came on hot at the end of last game, but looking at, he's just been missing passes. That the offense hasn't seemed to be clicking as much. Like, very different offenses from like week 1 through 4 to what we're seeing now. Like, they came out the gate just looking like, the Chiefs had looked like over the past couple years, and it didn't look like there was going to be any slowing them. And I mean, they really haven't been the same team in my eyes. Aaron Rodgers at 6. I just think that against Baltimore should be a pretty good game, but I just think that Aaron Rodgers, again, is one of those matchup-proof quarterbacks. Dak here against the Giants. Dak has most of his weapons outside Tony Pollard here. I'm not going to get cute and put somebody like Taysom Hill ahead of him. And then, again, Matt Stafford, I agree. He's always just finishing upside the top 10, and I just can't ever put him outside of there. Taysom Hill lands here at 9 for me. Kind of gave the reasons why, but safe floor, I think. It does have the cliff that he could fall off, but if he plays all 4 quarters, I think it's pretty safe to put him inside the top 10. And then I have Kirk Cousins at 10 against Chicago. I just feel like his connection that he's been had with last game kind of sucked, but outside that with Justin Jefferson, he's been pretty dynamic this year. He's been sneaky good. You mentioned Hurts. He falls at 12 for me. He initially was at 9. News now is that he's going to be okay. The ankle scared me a bit. I don't know how much they were going to throw in somebody else or what was going to happen. But Hurts scares me a bit. Getting the extra couple days now with it being moved, I think will help him, which is, I think, a positive. I mean, most of those, and I know most people were upset with that game moving, but I bet you Hurts himself is probably excited about it because he gets a couple extra days for that ankle. But yeah, he's only had 2 finishes outside of a quarterback 1, and it was against Detroit, where he put up, what was it? He was quarterback 25. That was week 8, and then week 12 against the Giants, number 27. So he has been just a fantasy stud this year, and it's those of you who drafted him have just reaped the benefits. And so I can see why he's inside the top 10. I'm probably gonna be wrong here because this is going to be the first time he has not been in my top 10, but I just have some concerns this week.
All right, I'll talk about Jalen Hurts on mine, but Pat, anything you want to add?
Yeah. So no, I that all sounds pretty good to me. And but for the record, I have Taysom Hill at 11. It's not like I have him down in the 20s. So as much as I was dissing him, so yeah, I mean, that was basically it. Billy and I just flip flop Hill and Hurts for the most part.
Fair enough.
Yep.
We'll move on to my top 10, and I also start with Kyler. I'm a little more, I'm pretty bullish on Josh Allen and Tom Brady, but his passing volume. The Bucs pass a lot, and they're a good passing offense, and getting New Orleans, I get that that's usually played tough, but the New Orleans slot corners have really struggled this year, and that's where Godwin lines up, and I think that connection, especially with Antonio Brown, probably, he's not playing in this game. I'm really bullish on Brady still connecting with Godwin, Evans, and Gronk. Justin Herbert I had at 4. Aaron Rodgers, I have at 5. The Packers homer and me moved him up a little bit. Dak Prescott at 6. I think that, Prescott, ever since he's had the calf injury, has been dealing with it. And he's made some mistakes and has tried to overcompensate and think about it. But I think that, now that he's got his full complement of weapons, he's been able to get, Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup. They're all like full-time back into the lineup. Dalton Schultz is there. I think with all of the weapons and been getting more passes, he can be less concerned. So I'm a little more bullish this week and seeing an upward trend. Taysom Hill, I just have confidence in his floor and his rushing floor. He's guaranteed to get 40, 50 rushing yards. And then the passing, it's, as we mentioned before, he's not an exceptional passer, but he's definitely, he's going to get the ball to his playmakers. And we've seen a continued increase in that over his tenure as starting quarterback. Another thing as well is he's scored exactly 2 touchdowns in every single game that he's started. So there's at least a 1 touchdown minimum floor, I think, there as well, despite not being a great passer. We all have Stafford at 8 for reasons mentioned before. Jalen Hurts, I don't think there's much of a controversy. I think he's going to be starting. There's not really a benching narrative. Gardner played well, but it was the Jets. Let's be honest here. The Jets are a defensive sieve. And Jalen Hurts as well. He's rushing and they intentionally gave him the bye to not rush him and they're excited to get him out. And so is Jalen Hurts. He's excited to get out there and play. So he's always getting up there, in the top 10, as we've mentioned. Only 2 games he's not been there. And then I took a stab at Patrick Mahomes flopping. And yes, it looks bad right now, but it looked a lot better, with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So sometimes in these rankings, I tried to make a statement and it looks bad in hindsight, but the process looked good for most of the game, even because Derwin James was out there for about half the game. And I thought that Derwin James was going to play the whole game. And I know he went out with re-injury, but if you want to play your studs and you think that all the studs are going to play, and if Chargers think that Derwin James is ready to play, then you got to, go under that assumption. And Travis Kelsey last night had 1 catch for 14 yards with Derwin James on the field. With Derwin James off the field, he had 9 catches, 177 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And that was almost half of the game. So we can see the splits, the difference that James makes on the field. And yeah, that's a bad beat. I'm probably gonna, get dinged pretty significantly on that quarterback ranking, but sometimes you got to take your stabs here.
Yeah, I remember messaging back and forth, and it was looking pretty good till the fourth quarter. It just, with that offense, you never know, right? They haven't played up to the level that we thought they were going to see. That
Tyreek Hill had a good game up until that time.
Yeah, it happens. I think it was a gamble, right? And sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. So Jalen Hurts, I want to touch base on this, as I saw a report for the first time this week was that he was dealing with a high ankle sprain. And that's the first time that I had seen anything about a high ankle sprain. We know that it was just to be an ankle. But typically, timeline, those are 3 to 5 weeks on average, which this would put him at the kind of the earlier timeline to be healthy from a high ankle sprain. Had you guys heard anything outside or heard of that report, or have you heard anything else about his ankle? Is he good to go? I haven't seen anything outside that. They said that they were going to be splitting reps possibly with Gardner Minshew.
Oh, wow. No, I had not seen that yet. I mean, I know generally that for quarterbacks, it seems like their time frame on a high ankle seems like it's a little bit less than it is for running backs and receivers. But then again, Hurts is a different type of quarterback. I think it was Matt Ryan who didn't miss any time last year, I want to say, for a high ankle. Yeah, it was 2 years ago. I can't recall. But that would be an issue for sure with the kind of quarterback Hurts is.
Yeah, again, like I look at him like I don't think he has a great arm. Like I think it's a lot better than Taysom Hill's. Don't get me wrong, but like I just don't think that he has, you know, he's not the pocket passer is what I'm trying to say, right?
Right.
He's mobile. That's where he makes his money is on the ground and creating those lanes and then creating openings. So yeah, I've been trying to find more on it. I think it was who was it that reported it? NFL Network. What's his name? Tom Pelissero? Is that
Pelissero, yeah.
Pelissero? I can never say that guy's name. I'm sorry, Tom. But but yeah, he reported it. I think it was a couple days ago, and I think Smoller retweeted it, and I was like, oh man, that's the first time I've ever even heard it was a high ankle sprain. So I will have to watch it. But before we transition to running backs,
go ahead,
Brad.
Billy, I can throw in that Jalen Hurts, he did have limited practices Wednesday and Thursday, but the game, remember, is moved to Tuesday. So there's extra time for Jalen Hurts and the Eagles to take on Washington.
All right. So before we run into running backs here, I told some people on YouTube who are waiting, they have some start-sit questions for everybody here. First one is, which one should I start? Penny, Pittman, or Jamal Williams, or Kirk? We'll just assume that it is, assume it's PPR.
I think for me, it would be Jamal Williams, even with PPR as much as that would normally move up Pittman. Like I'm really worried about that Pittman JC Jackson matchup. I feel like with the New England habit of trying to target one offensive player to take out from another team, like I don't think you can take out Jonathan Taylor. But I think they can take out Pittman, who's really the only viable pass catcher that team has. And if you take out him, you don't have a lot left as far as guys who can beat you. Whether that's, I don't know, I think it'll just be JC Jackson, who's been traveling with top receivers and just playing some fantastic ball. So kind of don't have any interest in him. I still like Jamal a little bit more than Penny, but it's really close. Really close.
Bradley?
I'm interested in Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk has been like a wide receiver too, and with DeAndre Hopkins definitely not in the lineup. Kirk is going to be making a lot of money this offseason when he hits free agency, or if he re-signs with Arizona. Either way, he's a player who has quietly, blossomed this year. So I'm interested in increased target share slightly. I'm interested in his big plays. I know that AJ Green has gotten a lot of the end zone or red zone targets. Green has had more than Kirk this year, but I think that, Christian Kirk is a player that Kyler Murray's going to be looking for him. He's worked with him the last couple of years, and I think this Arizona offense is going to move the ball pretty well against Detroit. So I'd lean Christian Kirk, but I'd also be interested. Billy, are you interested in Rashad Penny this week?
How'd you know? I knew we were going to do this guy dirty. We're going to give him 3 different names. We're going to give him 3 different names. I am a Penny truther. I thought this kid was going to be great out of college, and I was wrong. Part of it was the landing and injuries and Pete Carroll. I mean, I could go on and on about the reasons why he has failed in the NFL so far. But last week we saw kind of what we had expected Penny to be coming out of college. I initially had him in my top 15 in rankings last week, and I got a little gun shy because I didn't trust Pete Carroll, honestly. Like everything lined up. We had, Homer being out. We had Peterson being out. I was like, okay, this limits how much Pete Carroll can mess things up. And for me, I had Penny, like, I think it was at 14. And my draft partner, Dave, was even telling me that's too low. And I'm like, man, Dave, you're crazy. Like, I like Penny too, but you love Penny. And so I moved him back. I think it was like 22 or something like that. And he finished the week as running back 3 and half PPR, 26.3 fantasy points. And I think that earned him majority of the snaps here moving into playoffs for fantasy managers. So while I think that he has less to compete with Lockett, out, we'll see what happens with COVID and the final answers with those. He's got less backfield competition. I think that he has every chance to succeed in this backfield this week. And I just think that I like him a little bit more than the other options. But I would say close second would be Jamal for me. So I'm with Pat here. I kind of flipped the two, though. So sorry, I sell WC. We gave you 3 different names. So hope that helps. Another start sit. Flex half PPR, Devonte Parker or Devonta Freeman?
I'm Team Parker here.
Okay.
And
With Waddle out?
Yeah, I have a feling we'll talk more about him later. But yeah, with Waddle out, the terrific matchup this week. I really like him. I think he's going to get a lot of targets. I just think Devonte Parker's a really good player. Like a healthy Parker is pretty terrific player, and especially with the no Waddle situation, looking good for him this week. And the Packers have been, as Brad, I'm sure will back me up on, their run defense has been pretty good. They're going to miss Kenny Clark this weekend, but they've still been pretty solid against the run lately.
Bradley?
Oh man. See, I agree, Devonte Parker, but I want to give some love to Devonta Freeman. Like, this is a tougher decision, I think, than it's pretty close to 50-50, because Freeman over the last 3 games that he's played, he's had 6, 1, 8, and 5 targets. 3 of those 4 games with 5 receptions each. And I think he has a better chance for a touchdown. So I think he has a better chance for a touchdown, and he gets targets. But Devonte Parker, even in a part-time share with Waddle, and I know Will Fuller's like, let's take a step back here for a second. Like, should we put an APB out for Will Fuller? Like, should we do a murder documentary on Will Fuller's finger? Like, what has happened with him? Like,
well, you look back at the beginning of the year, and he was going to retire because of mental health. So I think a lot of it is mental health related.
You think that's driven?
Yeah, it was in the beginning of the year. He was looking at not playing, and they stated mental health. I think that with the finger combination, I think it's kind of a 2-part thing.
Maybe it's officially the finger. Nevertheless, I think that Devonte Parker, Devonta Freeman, it's really close, and yeah, I think I would lean Parker still, but Devonta Freeman this is a tough one.
I'm going to lean Parker as well. You look at Waddle's target share without him on the field, we're talking 10, 11 targets that are going to be available between Parker and Gesicki. Most likely are the 2 most beneficiaries. We do get some of the running backs back. Now looks like we have Ahmed and Gesicki, or not, sorry, Ahmed and who's your boy, Bradley? Why am I blanking on his name right now? Thank you. Gaskin. Gaskin's back. So yeah, I think that will eat into a little bit, but I think with Parker back, he's going to be the primary down the field threat. And I think he has as good a chance, if anyone, to get a touchdown as well. So one more, and then we'll move on to running backs. Full point PPR, Judy, Marvin Jones, Beasley, Gabe Davis, or Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Let me just look at what the rankings say.
I'd probably go Beasley.
That's a tough one.
Like a 20% share in a Bills offense that's not going to run the ball, pretty pass heavy. Maybe Gabe Davis has the touchdown upside, but with full point PPR, I'd probably go Beasley.
I'm with Brad on this too. Beasley's been their designated zone buster, and the Panthers play like cover 3 zone like 40% of the time. So yeah, I think that's the way to go. No Emmanuel Sanders for the Bills. I think there's a good chance you get like 7 or 8 catches out of Bees this week.
I'm going to say look at your waiver wire, because you might have Rashad Penny available. Right? There's leagues where he's out there, but if I have to pick a name here, I probably say Beasley as well, but it's a close second with me for Judy. Judy's been really the only one that you can even say has been consistent in this offense, if you can even say that, in the wide receiver core, not the running back core. So I like Judy, but I think that I lean Beasley with Sanders being out as well.
I just want to add, I think I'd earlier today bet a Marvin Jones over prop on DraftKings at like 43.5 yards. I do kind of think he gets like the post Urban Meyer bounce. He was one of the guys who had some run-ins with him. And I think the Texans are going to be without their best wide receiver, Terrence. I'm forgetting his name. Terrence Mitchell. Anyway.
Sounds right.
Yeah, so kind of like him too, but not as much as Beasley. And I agree Judy would be the runner-up for me too. So.
All right, let's run into running back rankings. For those of you who we had not answered your start sits, we will get them after the running back rankings. Pat, why don't you walk us through your running backs?
Yeah, so Taylor's pretty much been unstoppable and matchup proof. So he's a pretty easy number one. Cook looked great. I mean, maybe that shoulder is still a concern, but as good as he looked against Pittsburgh last week, we're rolling with him. Camara, he can do it to you both ways. Like I know like his rushing totals and the on DraftKings, like the prop was at like 51.5, which isn't too, isn't too confidence inspiring, but just knowing that he can do it as a pass catcher or as a runner and that he can, make his day for you with one big run. Chubb, I could make the case for Chubb being as high as second, especially, I know we'll see what how things shake out. Like if anyone by getting this game delayed, like brings anyone back, but I mean, he's going to be in line for so much work if they are as shorthanded as it looked like they were going to be if that game was played on Saturday. So Eckler, Billy and I had a conversation about this on Twitter earlier today about, whether we were going to move him down or not. And I kind of decided not to when I heard that he was going to play. We did see him get a little bit of a reduced workload, and it maybe wouldn't have worked out that well if he hadn't punched in the touchdown. Mixon, just kind of consistently solid. Harris, kind of a tough matchup for him against a good Titans run defense, but, he also has pass catching as an out. Fournette, a little bit of a health issue, but Brady just doesn't want to get hit in his old age, I think. And Fournette has just become such a dump off weapon. And I'm just really upset that I didn't get him in any drafts because I thought Giovanni Bernard was going to be like the new James White for Brady. I would have known Fournette was going to be the guy hauling in all these passes. I would have been all over him. Cordero Patterson, I'm a little nervous that Arthur Smith was talking about load management this week. And, in a lost season, why beat your 31-year-old running back into the ground? So a little concerned about him, but he stays in the top 10, just barely. And then number 10 spot was kind of a free-for-all. And, I'm kind of assuming that Darrell Henderson doesn't play. If Henderson does play, I'm going to be kicking out Sony Michel and putting Ramondre Stevenson in my top 10.
Yeah.
Ramondre is right there on the doorstep.
I like it. My rankings don't reflect Ramondre in the news today either. Bradley started his sheet here. We sent him the information this morning, and of course, news changes by the minute as of this week. And so, I like it. If Sony, I would even say if Darrell Henderson doesn't play, I think Sony would even stay in my top 10 over Ramondre, I think. But it's close. I really like Ramondre's upside. He's been running so hard. And that's one guy I watched film, and I felt like I missed that film a lot. Like I did not think he looked fast. I didn't think he looked that strong watching tape. And like he just looks like a different runner in the NFL than he did on tape. And like him and Javonte Williams were my two biggest misses on tape this year. And I just didn't think it was going to translate well with Javonte and it just quite frankly, just a whiff on both of them. But I'm sad to say that, but here we are, and he's looking like a beast now. So let's pull up mine, Bradley.
You've got a different number one here, Billy.
I got cute this week. Yeah. I moved JT down. So, it's so tough to do. It's like right when you click it, you're like, am I really doing this? Right. But for me, it's matchup based. And I know JT's been pretty much matchup proof, but New England looks at shutting down the best player week in and week out. And for me, that's nobody else other than Jonathan Taylor for this team. I really do feel like they're going to make Carson Wentz beat them. I feel like we're going to see some more loaded boxes. We're going to see 8 in the box, 9 in the box at times. I would not be surprised. And I think that Bill Belichick's going to just, pretty much say, if you're going to beat us, you're going to have to do it with Wentz. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't trust Wentz in those type of situations. I would say that JT is going to have a tough week ahead of him, I think. So Dalvin Cook for me is number 1. JT's been so good, though, it's very possible he could finish as number 1. I have Connor here at number 3 now, and I don't
That's
think
rich. That's rich, Billy.
He has been outstanding. I mean, you look at what he has done in games, and he's finished, running back 3, 7, 8, 16, 1, all in the past few weeks. And I think that, against this Detroit team, I just think that with Hopkins out, I think they're going to lean on him. Ankle appears to be okay. If it is not, they're precautionary to pull him out. Of course, this changes. Alvin Kamara at 4. I agreed with you, Bradley. If you're going to beat Tampa Bay, it's going to be through the air, and we're going to have to see dump offs here to Camara. Eckler 5. I had him at 10 about 2 minutes before kickoff, and Dave and I were talking about Eckler and making sure his ankle was okay. A couple cuts in preseason. Okay, he passed the eye test. Throw him back up to 5, and we were, wrong here. I think he'll probably finish closer to 10. Nick Chubb here at number 6. So Chubb, this one is more precautionary. Like, I'm just concerned, right? I look at these games getting pushed back, all the COVID cases, everything that has happened. And I just have some concerns with this team and everything that's happening right now. So I would have him higher, not many spots probably, but I do have some concerns. Najee Harris here, I have at 7. Joe Mixon at 8. I have Patterson at number 10. Patterson number 9. And then I have
the magic cord, right?
The magic cord. Yep. And then I have Gibson at 10 right now. So that one's probably going to change, I think.
Yeah, Gibson gets Philadelphia.
Yep. And you got the Stevenson news today. So there's news that affects these rankings, and they're not finalized until Sunday morning.
Yeah, we got to have production time. Our secretary has to, create these PowerPoints, and only has so much workable time and production meetings to get these readily available for our viewers and our listeners. So, but we'll move to mine here. Number 1, Dalvin Cook as well. It's as Billy mentioned, matchup based. The running back against the Patriots, from a rushing perspective, loses about 10% of their fantasy points from a rushing compared to average for all of the Patriots. So I think that's a little dink on Jonathan Taylor. It's not a huge drop. It's not like we're dropping him from number 1 to number 7 or 8 or anything like that. Jonathan Taylor is still firmly in the top 2. Nick Chubb I have here at 3. I think there's the rushing volume. Welcome back, Pat.
Sorry about guys, technical difficulties.
I know all about those last couple of weeks. No worries.
Here, for me, Chubb is 3, and I think it's a straight volume here. You have a third-string quarterback and not really many other pass-catching options. Jarvis Landry, they've lost Austin Hooper to COVID. David Njoku should be back. So if you're playing a Browns tight end, it's going to be Njoku. But I think that the primary offensive player in this Browns team is going to be Nick Chubb. Najee Harris, I have 4 against Tennessee. I think this is going to be more shootout-y than your average game. So Najee Harris is going to be pretty involved. Joe Mixon at 5. Deonta Foreman at 6 against Pittsburgh. Did y'all see the running lanes that Dalvin Cook had to run through?
I love it. It's like so many start-sit dilemmas with Foreman this week, and you could drive semi-trucks through those lanes against these Steelers. My only fear is, I don't know if he got injured that game. It looked like he tweaked his ankle. And then they started, splitting, because the first quarter it was like all Foreman, and he came out monster quarter, touchdown, and then next thing you know, it was a combination of all the backs, and then it was like third and fourth quarter, it was pretty much all McNichols. So I don't know what to make of Foreman. I love the matchup. I think he's been running hard. I think he looks pretty damn good, actually. I just have concerns with what they're going to do with those backfield reps and how they're going to divide them.
Yeah, there's been no mention of any issues moving forward with Foreman. So unless I hear differently, full like wheels up for Donta Foreman against Pittsburgh here. He needs to be a top 10 consideration. He may not be top 6 realistically, but at least get his name on the map here. Alvin Kamara, I have at 7. This is half point rankings, and full point, I'd probably move him up to about 4. Austin Eckler, I did move down. He was one of the players that I was a little more nervous about when I heard about the load management. I wanted to make sure that he was in my top 10, but lower tier than what I would normally put at, especially given the only thing that I didn't do, and I'm kicking myself, is I didn't move up Justin Jackson. I don't know, brain fart on my end. But number 9, Josh Jacobs. And the splits in the games where the Raiders are competitive versus non-competitive, like the splits for Jacobs are night and day. And that's been his whole career. If the Raiders are in a neutral game script or they're leading, Josh Jacobs is an RB1. But if they're down, if they're losing, they'll abandon him. And Josh Jacobs has been involved in the pass game. He's had numerous games over the last few weeks recently where he's caught 5-6 passes, even one game where he had 9 receptions. And this is a game that I think has shifted pretty significantly in our anticipated game script, because before the Browns were 6.5 point favorites, and now they're 2.5 point underdogs at home. So I think that this is a game where Josh Jacobs gets a lot of work. This might be his blow up 2 touchdown game that he has like 3 times a year. But I think that that's why also he needs to be in consideration in the top 10. And then Leonard Fournette. I know New Orleans is one of the toughest run defense. We talk about Tampa Bay being a tough run defense, but New Orleans has played the run very tough. And I think Leonard Fournette will make his money still through the passing game. He leads all running backs in targets. So he needs to make the top 10 no matter what, even if he's coming off injury. As long as he's out there, he's a top 10 consideration.
I'm inspired. Oh, I was just going to say I'm inspired by the boldness of Bradley's Deonta Foreman. Like, I mean, I know the Pittsburgh run D has been the steel tissue, not the steel curtain, but yeah, like I'm a little worried about the split with those other guys, but I do have Foreman too low, and I am moving him up after this. Like if they give him the work, he's even catching like passes here and there. Like I think he had like 8 pass receptions the whole time he was at the University of Texas or something. And like he's looked good as a pass catcher the few times they've thrown him the ball too. So I like that call a lot.
My most owned player in FFPC drafts right now is Donta Foreman, picking up on waivers for $1, and everybody chased AP. And I am just
all aboard,
so fired up right now. So fired up. I'm ready for it. I'm down the stretch, playoff times, tournament shootouts. Let's go. But New Orleans actually is the number 1 ranked defense against running backs. Fantasy wise, they have only given up 163 fantasy points to the running back position. So they are number 1 against running backs. So I had Fournette outside my top 10. Also injury concern as well. But if he's on the field, it's going to be hard not to place him at least as an RB1. So I fully understand why he's in the top 10 for you guys.
All right, let's roll the wide receivers here. Pat, you've got some chalk at the top, but let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, big time chalk. I mean, who would have thought that we'd ever have Cooper Kupp as the no-brainer wide receiver 1 every week? But here we are in 2021, and that's how it goes. Adams a real easy 2. Jefferson Hill. I think it's all pretty chalky. I like Deontay a lot this week against a Titans defense that I think the Titans are giving up just to wide receivers, like 197 passing yards a game. They've given up 2,500 and some yards to opposing wide receivers, the most in the league. So I think it's going to be a good week for him. Godwin, earlier in the show, Bradley, you mentioned the trouble the Saints have had with coverage of slot receivers. as it is, Godwin's had 30 catches the last 2 weeks. And the reception totals ever since Antonio Brown, exactly. Ever since Antonio Brown's been away, like the reception totals have just been through the roof for Godwin. His over under on DraftKings for the prop with receptions was 7.5. I'm trying to talk my wife into letting us bet the kids' college fund on that. I don't know if that's going to work, but so yeah, that's like even 6 doesn't feel high enough for him this week. Mike Evans, who's also been eating ever since Antonio Brown left. Debo, who, now that Elijah Mitchell's going to be out, this is mostly going to be running back value for him. He's I'd kind of like to see him get used a little more in the passing game,
right?
Yes, but I think he's going to get 8 to 10 carries this week. Chase, just, man, the guy's a fun player. Drops, touchdowns, like you get a little bit of everything with the guy. And Steph Diggs, I mean, hasn't been having a great year. And he's probably, I don't know, is he going to see Stephon Gilmore this week? So not wildly confident about him, but it's still a top 10 play.
Yeah, I'm down on Diggs this week too. I have him at 9. I have concerns. Carolina's tough, that secondary especially. So, but we do have no Emmanuel Sanders, which I think gives him a slight bump. Primarily will probably help the other receivers, but I do think you'll see a couple extra targets his way, which will keep him inside the top 10. Let's pull mine up, Bradley. I also have the chalk at the top. I differ at 4 and 5 from you, so I moved Debo up. I am hoping for a little bit more passing work. We have seen Kittle just kind of take a grip of that lately and run with it, but Debo will see a lot more in the backfield with Mitchell now officially ruled out. So Tyreek, I moved down to 5, unfortunately. I'm gonna give myself the crying face. Where is it? I can't never mind, can't find it in time. Deontay Johnson, I have at 6. Chris Godwin, 7. Keenan Allen, I moved up to 8, so I'm happy about that move. I think that one's going to play out. Again, this was a game script play for me heading into Thursday night. I just thought it was going to be a shootout and all game. Stephon Diggs at 9, and then CeeDee Lamb at 10. For the record, Jamar Chase is at 11.
Okay. I love me some Cincinnati Bengals this week, but the only a little bit of chalky difference is my Packers homer in me just has Devontae Adams at number 1. I'll own that, but Kupp is still 2, Jefferson 3, Tyreek Hill at 4, Godwin, Johnson, Diggs at 7. I think the loss of Manny Sanders has run the most routes out of any of the wide receivers in Buffalo before this injury. And so I think that bumps up Gabe Davis, but I think they'll look to scheme a little bit more for Stephon Diggs, get him an increased target share there. And I think it'll start hitting this week. Renfro at 8, like how can we not keep Hunter Renfro at least out of our top 12? Like Darren Waller is out for this week. This offense is designed around Hunter Renfro, and he's been fire. Like there's no way else to put it. It doesn't require a lot of analysis. But then
wait, real quick before you move the next guy.
Yeah,
somebody drafted Hunter Renfro in round 3 in my home draft, and we had been drinking. Don't get me wrong, and I was initially thinking, no idea what's going on here, and now the guy looks like a wizard. Like you looking back at it, it's like, how did he know? Right? No, it was a Raider homer, and he got lucky, is what happened. But I had to mention that because I have the board still, and I'm just laughing at it whenever I see it.
Looking at 9 and 10, the Cincinnati Bengals, I think T. Higgins is above Jamar Chase, and that's been the trend lately. Higgins had 29 targets over the last 3 games. Chase has had 19. And I know that Chase had 2 touchdowns last week, and he's the touchdown maker, but I think T. Higgins needs to get a lot of love here too. He's been consistently ranked in like wide receiver 20, wide receiver 22, wide receiver 18, and I think he needs to be reconsidered here. T. Higgins over the last 3 weeks, 114, 138, 114 receiving yards. He's up to almost 400 air yards over the last 3 weeks and had number 2, number 4, and number 22 finish. I think he needs to be considered here in the 2 Cincinnati Bengals need to be considered here in the top 10.
So, Bradley, Denver Broncos give the 10th fewest fantasy points to receivers. Does that concern you having 2 of the top 10 in your rankings?
No.
Yeah, fair enough.
It doesn't. They're extraordinarily talented wide receivers, and I'm too low on Joe Burrow. I think the entire fantasy community is too low on Joe Burrow. But at the same time, like when you have 2 alphas on your team, and then you have Tyler Boyd too, like the pattern that the Cincinnati Bengals have been going through is run like first down, maybe run second down, and then they don't take the short passes, they chuck it down. Like the average depth of target for Jamar Chase is in the high teens, almost 20 yards per target. So Higgins, Chase, these are players that stretch the field, force the Broncos to play in different ways. And this isn't just any ordinary offense that the Broncos will be facing this week.
Pat, any questions in the rankings, feedback, anything?
No. And I agree totally with Bradley on T. Higgins. Like a month or so ago, I was getting questions from like start-sit questions, and it would be like T. Higgins or Russell Gage or T. Higgins or Cole Beasley. Like, no, man, T. Higgins isn't a totally different plateau than those dudes. I like the Renfro call. I've got him at 12, but how can you argue with the sort of production he's gotten? And I feel like come next draft season, like people are going to maybe underestimate him, think it was kind of a circumstantial thing, and like let him slip to maybe, into the 6th round or something. And like, I don't know. I mean, I'd be happy taking him in the 5th or 6th round next year, like thrilled. I have a feeling I'm going to have a lot of Hunter Renfro make up for it. What I didn't get this year, make up for it next year. And, if people think I'm overdrafting him, fine, but I think this guy's totally legit.
Yeah, he just fits the Derek Carr mold, right? Derek Carr won't throw you the ball unless you're like a yard or 2 open, and Renfro just seems to be able to be that guy for him, constantly looking to him on 3rd downs. Like you look at trusted receivers, right? And whether they have the draft pedigree or not, when they're a trusted receiver and they have opportunity, we've said time in and time out, opportunity is king in fantasy football. And the NFL at that. And if you are having that type of opportunity and your quarterback trusts you, you're going to put up fantasy points.
Billy, I think he's the new Julian Edelman.
That's what I was going to say. He's the new Edelman. Yeah, I love it. So before we move to tight ends, we have a couple more start sits here. Stevenson, or I think that's Aaron Jones in PPR. Should I wait on Osborne or play Pittman to pair with Ayuk in PPR? Waddle and Lockett on the COVID list.
Well, Stevenson for me at running back.
Yeah.
And
that hurts my Packer heart. But
yeah, I know.
Jones has been trash this year.
I mean, the thing
don't
is,
tell me about it.
He's getting the touchdown bailouts, Yep. But if he doesn't get the touchdown bailouts, I think Dylan's probably going to have more carries this week. So I'm still playing Pittman over Osborne, I think. I don't know if that's right.
So I'm going to say Pittman over Osborne as well. I'm kind of a Pittman homer, though. And then I am easily picking Stevenson over Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, we've talked about a few times on the show this year. I mean, you look at his finishes. He's only finished as a running back 4 times. Nope, I'm in the wrong formula. That's standard. Still 4 times all year. I mean, he's finished outside the top 40 equally as many times. I mean, Aaron Jones has just been playing not to the draft capital that people invested into him. We've seen a lot more Dylan, and they're still just throwing the ball a lot to Devontae Adams. So I'm going to say definitely Stevenson with the news out today.
Well, and with Damian Harris out, the last time Damian Harris was out, Stevenson played 56% of the snaps, had 20 rushes, 6 red zone rushes, converted 2 of those to touchdowns, and was the running back 2 on the week against the Cleveland defense that had Clowney and Myles Garrett. So like he's a good player. And this offense is going to be centered around giving him just a tremendous amount of volume. So you have to go Stevenson. I think I would be a little contrarian and go KJ Osborne with Thielen out. I don't anticipate him playing. He's going to run as the number 2. And Tyler Conklin is like a safe tight end, like mid tight end too, but he's not going to, take away those intermediate to big play routes. So I'd probably go Osborne given the matchup against Pittman here.
We have another one that's tight end related. So let's pull up our tight ends and then we'll answer his question after we finish our tight ends here.
All right. So just going with the hot hand at Kittle. Obviously, in hindsight, it's a mistake not to have Kelsey at number 1, but I'm going to fall back on Bradley's point about, until James left the game, Kelsey wasn't doing much. So Gronk Andrews was kind of a tough call. I've got Gronk a little ahead. He's just been, cashing in pretty much every week ever since he's gotten healthy again. With Antonio Brown out, there's just room for like all of Evans, Godwin, Gronkowski to get theirs every week. Knox has been involved again. Looks like he's totally back from the broken hand, and with no Sanders, should be pretty involved. I think Ertz takes a step up in class with no DeAndre Hopkins. He's going to be an important contributor for them. Schultz, I mean, there's definitely a lower floor now that they've got all 3 of those receivers healthy, but it's still a pretty potent offense and potent passing attack. So I'm keeping him at 7. Gesicki, I mean, no Waddle is kind of a big deal. Like I could see a big splash week for Gesicki potentially, but then again, there have been times where you've expected it from him and you get let down. He's a kind of an unpredictable dude. Freiermuth just pretty steady, and Goddard's. I mean, it was kind of alarming that he clicked so well with Minshew. Has that great game. Hasn't caught a touchdown pass from Hurts since like September. But yeah, I mean, for Goddard's sake, you'd almost rather see Minshew in there, but he still stays in the top 10.
I like it.
I left out Pitts. Just tough matchup for Pitts against San Francisco. They've been stingy on tight ends this year.
Pitts doesn't make my top 10 either.
We'll see if he makes mine.
He's Pitts has only finished inside the top 10 in half PPR 1, 2, 3 times, 4 counting last week at 10 all season. So he's been a tough one to rank when you lose your number 1 wide receiver and people are able to throw double coverage on your rookie tight end who's out there being ran like a jumbo X receiver. It changes his development and definitely his trajectory. I mean, he's still putting up record breaking numbers as a rookie here, or close to him, but where people drafted him, they look at it as a disappointment, right? But he's going to have one hell of a career as soon as they get some more pressure to take off of him. George Kittle for me at number 1, because I am sorry, George Kittle, I've moved you the last couple of weeks and I apologize. I will never do it again. Travis Kelsey here at 2. Of course, I moved him the week Kelsey blows up. Mike Gesicki at 3. So I did get cute here. I agree with you, Pat. No Waddle to me is a big deal. He does have those times where he just goes invisible, like, can't see him, and he's not even on the team. It seems like throws up a 0 for you. I don't think that's this week versus the Jets, who are giving up the I think 7th or 8th most fantasy points to the tight end position on the year. And that's a lot of targets to be thrown around, 10, 11, 12 targets a game with Waddle out. Gronk, you can't put him outside the top 5. The guy's just been an animal. He's just been Tom Brady's go-to week in and week out. I expect a tough game for New Orleans. I expect Brady to lean on Gronk in those tough situations. Mark Andrews here at 5 as well. Might get moved a little bit more. I just want to see what's going to happen with the quarterback here and how this is going to play out. Goddard at 6. Not confident about it. Same concerns as Pat. I would hope that they saw what Minshew did and Hurts says, hey, I got to do that too, or else I got to be looking over my shoulder. So I am hoping they get him involved. And with how many drops Jalen Reagor had last time Hurts threw him the ball, I think that he may be looking to throw the ball more Goddard's way. Dawson Knox, I have at 7 as well. And then Dalton Schultz at 8. Ertz at 9. I like the matchup. I like the fact that Hopkins is not there, but there is some health concerns. And then last but not least, I have the Muth at number 10. So I love Pitt. I like Muth the rest of the season over Pitts, quite frankly.
The Muth of Luth.
Yeah, love it.
It'll be Luth. All right. Yeah, I like some of these calls. Gronk in the top 4. I like that. I don't like Mark Andrews in the top 5 or at number 5. I was very bullish on Mark Andrews. I've been a Mark Andrews truther and lover. So Kittle for me, Andrews, and then Kelsey. Obviously, with how I missed on the game script, that's just how it goes. But Gronk at 4, Dawson Knox at 5, Goddard at 6 for me, Dalton Schultz at 7, Zach Ertz at 8. I think Kyle Pitts at 9. Yeah, this is. I know. But here's the thing. He's due. Kyle Pitts. There are only 2 players in the NFL who have a lower OTD. That's Mike Clay's stat for NFL opportunities for touchdowns. 2 players that have a worse OTD that have scored as many touchdowns as him, and that is who are the 2 players here? Chase Claypool and Lamar Jackson. So those 2 players are due for touchdown regression. I think similarly for Kyle Pitts. This is a play where, who else are they going to throw to? I mean, Russell Gage, of course, but this seems to be like the common narrative. I think that eventually he's going to hit, and being too low on Kyle Pitts, is going to bite us in the butt one of these weeks. And well, is it going to be the San Francisco week? Like, Kyle Pitts should have 4 touchdowns on the year approximately. Instead, he has 1. So maybe it's next year. Maybe it's the LaVisca Chenault, treatment that we'll try again next year. But, Kyle Pitts, I still, it's so tantalizing, the amount of talent that he has. I can't get over it. So Kyle Pitts at 9 for me. And then the Muth still makes the top 10 for me.
I hope you're right about Pitts, man. I'm starting him in a playoff game this week. So
a touchdown would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
So we have a start sit tight end question here, and it's actually a good one because a lot of fantasy managers are probably thinking of this as they have their playoffs on the line. Daniel says, I have both Knox and Goddard. Should I start Knox just because he has a Sunday game, so it's less likely that game gets canceled? Full PPR.
Well, I've Knox ahead of Goddard anyway, so I would definitely make that move, Daniel.
Bradley?
I also have Knox ahead of Goddard as well. But I think this is something that you have to keep in mind. This is a legitimate concern that you have games that could be canceled. And for maybe not questions like this, but for other start sits, like if it's a coin flip and you've got to wait until later on, like 2-3 days later, like let's say, you have a couple players playing Sunday or Tuesday and they're within the same range, like start the ones that are guaranteed that are playing. You don't want to, and maybe there are rules that your commissioner has in your league that you can put in substitutes or different things. Look, every league is different, and that comes down to knowing your league settings and knowing how the commish is running things. But ultimately, like, this is about minimizing risk. That's the play here. So the minimized risk is take the Sunday games if the players are playing then. That's the general takeaway.
Yeah, I do have Goddard ranked 1 spot above Knox, but I would start Knox in this situation. Again, I agree with Bradley, take the guaranteed points. But it's very close for me in terms of rankings this week. So I will lean Knox with this question. We have another start sit here before we wrap up the show. Hey, y'all, love the stuff. Watch every video. Debo, Javonte, or Edmonds in the flex if Connor doesn't play. Debo. That's easy for me.
Same.
Oh, man.
You're tempted by Edmonds if there's no...
Oh, I'm so tempted by Edmonds because it's against Detroit. They're going to give Detroit is just an absolute sieve against the running back. I mean, you saw what the Eagles did, just a few weeks. And then the last week, the Denver Broncos had 2 top 7 running backs. If it's only going to be Edmonds back there, oh my gosh.
But would it be, or do you think they'd give, like, I don't feel like they're,
I don't feel like it would be. I don't feel like it would be Edmonds.
Right.
It would be. I think Eno would have involvement.
Yes.
I think Jonathan Ward would have involvement. They're not going to rush. They've been so cautious with him up to date and given him the time off that he needs to recover from this ankle injury. Even with Connor out, I don't think you're playing Detroit for crying out loud. Like they're going to be able to roll out, their second string and probably beat them this week. I'd be
so tantalized with Edmonds compared to the role that Debo's had with Elijah Mitchell out. I think
Debo may see the same amount of carries that Edmonds has.
That's what I don't think so.
Edmonds is probably going to see more targets, though.
Fair enough. If Connor doesn't play at all, I'd lean. Why is this even a flex? Debo should be in the wide receiver 1 category, to be honest. Taking a step back, like Edmonds definitely over Javonte in this matchup if Connor's not out. So that's
I would love to see who is wide receiver 1 and 2 are.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
He's like, oh, I have
Cooper Kupp and Devontae Adams.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson's my other flex.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're split there. 2 of us lean Debo. 1 leans Edmonds if Connor's out. I am pretty confident Connor plays, though. Seeing some reports. And I think that's it. Last question, then we'll get out of here. Thanks for all your help, gents. Similar to my above question, should I therefore start Foreman over Montgomery, or is Montgomery a tier above?
I'd go Foreman, but y'all saw my rankings.
Pat?
Yeah, I think Montgomery is a tier above, and like that Vikings defense really isn't to be feared. I just man, like I wish there was a little more pass catching upside for Montgomery with Fields. I don't know if there is, but like as intrigued by Foreman as I am, I would still go with Montgomery here.
Yeah, I'm not even a Montgomery guy, but you can't argue with the volume that the guy's seeing.
I have him at 11, so he's not like crazy.
Last week was only 10 carries in the ground, but 21 the week before, 17 before that. He's also seeing targets 9, 7, right? So his involvement in this offense is pretty solid. It's there's no questions about it, where like we do have that concern with Foreman. Hey, is he going to see 33% of the snaps share? How much Hilliard are we going to see? What type of packages is Foreman going to play? Is it going to be short yardage and goal line? Is Hilliard going to come in and spell him on third downs and take some goal line carries? Like what's going to happen with McNichols? Adding that third back into the piece muddied these waters. And as much as I like Foreman in the matchup, it's just tough for me to commit. Well, everybody, that wraps up the show. I want to say thank you, Pat, for joining us. It was an honor and a privilege to have you on to discuss rankings. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and your work?
Very honored to be on with you guys. Really enjoyed talking to both you, Billy and Bradley. This was fantastic. So they can find me at Fantasy Pros. I also have the weekly Fitz on Fantasy podcast, and you can find me on Twitter at Fitz_FF.
Perfect. Well, everybody, we are nearing the end of our 2 shows a week. We have two weeks left until we move to 1 a week. And then I'm also going to be doing a high stakes only pod on Wednesdays coming up shortly, as well as we kind of wrap up the high stakes season. So keep an eye out for that. I'll announce that on Twitter as well, and where to find that podcast. But thanks for tuning in. As always, if you have any other start sit questions, feel free to DM Bradley or I via Twitter, and we would be happy to answer those. Just make sure you give us enough notice so we can respond to them. And we appreciate you guys tuning in and being a part of the show, asking questions live. Make sure to hit the subscribe button on YouTube, like on Facebook, wherever you're watching this. I'll also have it up on podcast here shortly. So again, Pat, thanks for joining us, and have a good night, everybody.